My manuscript is called the 49 Gallery, and it's just 49 painting poems. I just thought 49 Gallery sounded interesting. 7 times 7, someone could read into it. They're called ekphrastic poems. Any poem or any work of art that deals with another specific work of art, or even just the idea of art in general, but usually it's a specific art, is called ekphrastic, meaning coming out from the thing. Um, and the reason most of them fail is because I'm going to write a poem about the movie Goodfellas. And I'm just talking about, and a poem like that usually is, you know, that scene where Robert De Niro does this, blah, 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 and then Joe Pesci does this, blah, 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 blah. Well, me and my friend were watching that movie, and just like them, we had a moment, and they tried to cast the the speaker in the poem somehow with the character, or with somehow with the work of art, and it fails because you have to know the art to basically get it. It doesn't go out from the art. It's not ek meaning outside of, external, ekphrastic. It doesn't get outside the art. And no matter how great a writer I am, I can never write about Moby Dick and have the import, let's say, that Melville had with Moby Dick. Now I can write a poem about Moby Dick that takes off on that. If I do a poem, for example, like the Caravaggio poem, um, that's a poem that if I'm just writing about what's in the painting, okay, that could be interesting. The best of those poems tend to be, okay, it's interesting. Um, but that poem and all of the other poems in that sequence, and also some other poems that I've done outside of that sequence that dealt with art, take the initial art as a starting point and move out. In this case, I'm talking about the Caravaggio painting dealing with issues that are dealt with this woman called Grandma Chin, who is the grandmother of a young Chinese boy who was her grandson, who came to visit her. She lived two houses down from me in Ridgewood on Stevens Street. I think in the poem I call the boy Philip Chin. His real name was Stephen Chin, and we were friendly. I remember one time we got into a fight. He scratched me with his nails, and I thought it was a real douchey thing to do. Um, but other than that, I probably last saw him when I was 7 or 8 years old, so it's been over 40 years. So I have no idea if he's still alive. But anyway, I remember Grandma Chin, who I guess lived through the Japanese occupation of China throughout the 1930s into World War II. And I guess she was a young woman when this happened, so she probably would have been born sometime around 1910, 1915, which means she was probably in her late 50s, early 60s when I knew her. She hated the Japanese, and she would always talk shit about the Japanese with some justification. She would always invite me in to eat whenever Stephen came over, and we'd play. And I thought she always stood with me, and her stories and her own backstory, the little I could piece together from my memory of what she had told me and Stephen about her life, it just to me lent itself to Caravaggio.